Today, we're going to talk about something that affects almost everything you buy, but you probably don't think about it much. It's this huge, invisible system that brings us our stuff. And we're going to ask a really important question. What is the true cost of all this convenience we love so much? All right, let's get into it. So picture this. It's 2011, and across Germany, a foodborne illness is spreading like wildfire. We're talking 54 people dead, 4,000 people sick. It was a massive crisis, and everyone was terrified because nobody knew what was causing it. And that right there is the heart of the problem. It wasn't just one bad batch of food. The real issue was that our global food system had become this tangled, complicated web. It was so opaque that by the time investigators could actually trace the illness back to its source, it was just too late.
What happened in Germany is a perfect, if tragic, example of the danger we face when we're disconnected from the things we eat and the things we buy. And that disconnection, well, it has very, very real consequences. I mean, just listen to this quote from a shopkeeper at the time. Can you imagine? The whole country was in a panic, and because nobody had any real answers, they just started pointing fingers. People's businesses were ruined, all because the system was too much of a mess to give a straight answer. Let's just walk through the timeline because it really shows the chaos. The outbreak starts, and officials guess it might be Spanish cucumbers. Boom. Farmers across Europe lose millions. But they were wrong. The actual source? Salad sprouts grown right there in Germany. The whole investigation was like a wild goose chase through this global maze, and every single delay cost lives. And you know, this isn't just about huge national outbreaks. It gets incredibly personal. This is Stephanie Smith. She was a 22-year-old dance instructor, and her life was completely turned upside down by one single hamburger that was contaminated with E. coli.
So you have to ask, right? Who was responsible for this? When something you buy causes so much damage, shouldn't it be pretty straightforward to figure out where it came from and hold someone accountable?
Well, you'd think so, but it wasn't straightforward at all. Turns out that hamburger patty, which came from a giant company called Cargill, was made from a mix of meat scraps from all over the place. Different slaughterhouses, even different countries. The original source was completely lost, buried in this industrial process. Accountability? Pretty much impossible. Okay, so when you hear stories like Stephanie's or the one from Germany, you start to realize the problem isn't just a few mistakes. The problem is the system itself. And that brings us to the rise of this powerful, but often invisible force in our lives, the middleman.
So what exactly is the middleman economy? Well, it's a system where just a handful of massive companies stand in between the people who make things and us, the people who buy things. They control the whole flow, and in doing so, they concentrate a ton of power and make it really hard to see where our stuff actually comes from. And the scale we're talking about is just mind-blowing. $450 billion. That's the revenue from just the top 10 food and beverage companies back in 2019. That's not just a lot of money. That is a staggering amount of concentrated power. And the craziest part is that this power is hiding right in front of us, every day. You walk down the grocery aisle and you see hundreds of different brands. You think you have all this choice, right? But look at this. That fancy blue bottle coffee? Owned by Nestle. Gatorade. PepsiCo. Kit Kat. Gerber. Quaker Oats. Lay's. So many of those choices just lead back to the same couple of giant corporations. It's really just an illusion of choice. So here's the key takeaway. These middlemen, they aren't just delivery services moving stuff from A to B. Their size gives them the power to shape the entire system. They tell farmers what to grow and how to grow it. They lobby governments. And ultimately, they're the ones who decide what you and I even get to see on the shelf. Okay, so this all sounds pretty bleak, I know. But there is another way. A growing number of people are discovering that there's incredible power in cutting out the middleman and, well, going direct. A really fantastic example of this is something called community-supported agriculture, or CSA. The idea is simple. Instead of buying your veggies from a giant faceless supermarket, you buy a share directly from a local farm. You get to know your farmer, you know exactly where your food is coming from, and you're actually part of their journey through the season. And the difference is just night and day. On one hand, you've got the giant industrial farm churning out one or two crops to sell into the global system. On the other hand, you've got a small CSA growing a huge variety of things specifically for the people in its community. It's a completely different philosophy. And that direct connection, it changes everything. I absolutely love this quote from a CSA member.
When you know the person who worked in 95-degree heat to grow your food, you value it more. You don't want to waste a single bite. And hey, this isn't just about food. It's happening everywhere. You've got wineries that build lifelong relationships with their customers, or beauty brands that source their ingredients directly from women's cooperatives in Ghana. When you go direct, you get trust, you get transparency, and you get a real human connection. And for these small businesses, having a fantastic product isn't just a marketing slogan, it's literally how they survive. All right, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually bring this idea into our own lives? How can we start to reconnect? Let's talk about some practical ways to think about it. And let's be super clear here. This is not about being perfect. It's not about throwing out everything in your house and moving off the grid. It's just about being a little more thoughtful, a little more conscious in the choices we make every day. So here's a simple way to think about it. First, just pause and look past the obvious default choice. Second, ask yourself, is there a way I can shorten the chain here? Can I get just one step closer to the person who made this? And third, just experiment. Try a farmer's market this weekend. Order directly from a local place instead of a delivery app. The goal isn't perfection, it's just exploration. When you really think about it, every dollar we spend is kind of like a vote. It's a vote to either support the old, disconnected system or to help build something new, something based on connection. So I'll leave you with this question. What connection will you choose to build next?